I remember now. I remember how it started. I don't remember yesterday. I just remember doing what they told me. Do you remember how this started? When you were just trying to figure things out? Maybe asking friends for help? I remember that first song that I figured out. I remember that sense of victory, like I'd unlocked something or discovered something secret or found some buried treasure on an island somewhere. It was a really big deal. And the funny thing about it, it wasn't on the guitar. My first instrument was a saxophone. 6th grade band. No clue why I picked the saxophone. Maybe it was because nobody in my family played one, so there wasn't any competition. Or maybe it was because nobody in my family played one, so I didn't have to use a hand-me-down instrument. But I got really big into big band jazz, which is kind of weird for a 12-year-old. Les Brown and his band of renown, Glenn Miller, and that, of course, led to Etta James. And then, of course, the Marseilles brothers. Marsalis, Marseille, tomato, let's call the whole thing off. Add that to a house where my sister played Queen on a regular basis. Of course, throw in some Bay City Rollers on the SATURDAY night. Mom was a big Kenny Rogers fan. There was Waylon playing for reasons that I can't understand. And then, of course, you had Jethro Tull in the Aqua Lung. Frampton Comes Alive was my summer soundtrack for years. Quite a plethora of options. About the time that marching came into play, I decided to quit band, and I learned to play bass. The Police gave way to Bryan Adams, then the Red Rocker joined Van Halen and set my world on fire. I got locked into a particular style of music, some of which I understood quite well. Steve Vai, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, George Lynch, Brian Setzer, Pete Townsend, some of which I never understood, like Randy Rhoads or Hendrix. Yeah, but my dad and I, we went to see Clapton together. And then I shifted away from it all. I unplugged. I went dumb and strum, sing-song, sing-along lyrics, church stuff. No one yelled out Dokken at the Youth for Christ gatherings. And I did that for a while, for a long while. I started playing drums in the praise band at church. But the distorted riffs, the grunge, the chug, they were never far from my ears, although my ears were usually covered with headphones. I wrote songs about faith while I listened to happy pop punk. I went hard into the blues and some Americana. I wrote songs about loss, and then I wrote more than a few about love. And then I started doing a YouTube channel where I had to find content. And then I started spending time with the junior Appalachian musicians. And I figured out that the more that I learned, the more I knew that I didn't know. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I just knew that it was a challenge. The chord progressions weren't much of a concern, but the rhythms, to me, there was a discernible absence of groove. At least that's what I thought. But as it turns out, as that has happened many times before, I was wrong. There was a pocket there. I just couldn't feel it. So I went back to playing bass, just for one day. But I found it. And it was enough to remind me that there was a foundation underneath it all. And so I made a commitment to myself to start playing things that were far away from my previous type of music. It was really funny starting over, especially with the finger picking. I had developed kind of a thumb and strum technique that used my pointer finger. One went down, one went up. How complicated can it be? But suddenly, I started trying to do this thing called chicken picking. I started trying to do banjo rolls. So my fingers started to get more limber and more independent. And as it turns out, you can do double stops on the guitar and use something other than pentatonic scales. I thought major and minor were all I needed. And what I found was with new progressions came different rhythms and new voices, and getting into that made me more adaptable. It made me more expressive. It gave me an inkling into different cultural inspirations. It gave me insights into new forms of music. It gave me exposure into different genres. And it's a lot like learning a new language. It's a lot like starting over. I remember how it started. That first time I figured out a song. And it felt like that. The first time I plucked out a progression and I knew I was 60% there. And then I kept trying to figure it out and I found 70 and then 80. And then my head finally went ahead and completed it. I just had to get my hands to cooperate. And it was just like it was when it started all those years ago. That's the wonderful thing about trying to play against type. You rediscover the fun that it was with those early successes, the inspirations that used to wrap around you and strive to make you move forward. And that's what it's like when you continue to break down the barriers, to expand your inspirations, your techniques, and your skills. So yeah, maybe I am a little more country than I was rock and roll. But that's okay. I can come back to what I knew. But for now, I'll spend time wading into different pools, surrounding myself with different feelings, with playing in a different pocket, and discovering more and more about this glorious world of music that's around us. So I challenge you not to just like, share, subscribe, and comment enjoy, but to stretch your legs on new beaches, see new shores, climb new mountains when it comes to music. And always remember, eventually, it'll bring us back to dough.